Hello gentlemen, something has been eating at me and I decided to stray from my usual film analysis and explore something a little different. Recently, in an effort to avoid living in a Mgtow vacuum, I decided I'd randomly take the temperature of the men and women in and around my life. I wanted to get a feel for how they viewed subjects that were reoccurring within the Mgtow community. Here's the thing though, most of the people in my life have no idea I am a Mgtow. The reason is simple. As a freelancer and entrepreneur, many of my clients and business associates are women and manjanas. When women and manjanas get any inkling that you have non-traditional views as heavy as the kind presented by Mgtow, you run a very real risk of being labeled a misogynist and subsequently ostracized. Being put in this position could greatly affect my income and the outcome of my big picture goals. Therefore, there are only two people I can be completely honest with in regard to my Mgtow status. Those two people are one of my best friends who discovered the Mgtow lifestyle at the same time that I did, and my first cousin who has been living the Mgtow life long before there was a word for it. So I set out on my mission to investigate the civilian world with carefully chosen words and context in an effort to pry ideas and information from them without alerting them to my personal viewpoints. I believe that context matters, and in the spirit of disclosure, you should know that at the time I'm writing this I am currently functioning as a level 2 Mgtow that has one foot thoroughly planted in the level 3 zone. I will regress to level 1 on the occasion that I come across some completely convenient proximity pussy I can ravage. My natural level is certainly closer to a hard level 1 bordering on level 2. However, at the moment I am working extremely hard to complete some fairly lofty personal goals, and even a short-term relationship could be disastrous to my timetable. It is my personal experience that when it comes to lofty goals, women are an infection that spreads quickly in an effort to rob you of your ambition. Because women don't see your ambition as a resource you should pour into yourself, they see it as a resource that could be better used on them. I need all my resources for me at the moment, and I mean every last drop. So fuck them and the government that supports their bullshit. One of the things that I immediately noticed as I prodded people for viewpoints on Mgtow subjects was this. There seems to be this idea being floated among many men and women that when the words resources and utility are applied to a woman's agenda, they are synonymous with money. This bothered me because I had also noticed quite a bit of that notion residing within the manosphere as well. As a well-traveled, socially diverse, former man whore and child of Generation X, I'd like to lay out some opinions about this subject. Do not allow women to confuse you by fostering the idea that they are not gold diggers just because they are not after your money. Your cash is not the only gold they dig for. In this rare instance, I'm going to reorganize the definition of a popular Mgtow term and say that women very often qualify as a nawalt. Here's the catch though, I'm not saying that their overall imperative is different. What I'm saying is the specifics of their value systems are different. Different lifestyles, different social milieu, different upbringing, different cultural norms and different fetishes all breed very nuanced definitions of the words utility and resource. They all have a tribe, and the gold they are digging is based on the dynamics of said tribe. Let's start with status and social resource. Does the rich girl who is daddy's little princess need to chase money or the traditional status model? Of course not. Those are simply the fringe benefits of the tribe she was born into. It's been my experience that she and her coven may be more prone to chase the status items they don't have easy access to. It is much more exciting for a woman like this to chase the alpha male bad boy or the dumb as rocks pro athlete. In most cases she will only go so far with this and will not allow these characters to create any problems that are too big for mommy or daddy to fix. For example, even with home porn circulating on the internet, and jail time, Paris Hilton still came out a big winner after her dalliance with several alpha male douchebags and her celebrity bad girl status. She really is the girl that has everything. Or at least it would seem that way. However, The men she seeks during this phase of her life are there to provide her other kinds of resources, such as cool points, validation within a world where she doesn't technically belong, and a mechanism for her defines of her family's values. It's ultimately just good old-fashioned status inside a world where the rules of status are different. I saw Paris out one night at an after-party for some fashion show I had photographed. She was with this ridiculous white guy who looked like he could be an underwear model but was dressed up like a rapper from the 90s. For the sake of context, this was like a couple of years ago. While they looked pretty cozy together, I have no idea if they were dating or not. But she did seem to enjoy being seen with him. The resource he provided her, in my opinion, was an edgier urban image, plus he was about an 8 to 10 on the pretty boy scale. He was probably a big fish within the scope of what she and gal pals believed to be important for their poor little rich girl dynamic. Something about this dude's social positioning appealed to Paris. She is not someone who just hangs with people randomly. Since no one I was with could identify him as anyone with any form of obvious power or fame, my best guess is that it was some combination of social proof and looks that brought him into her circle. Even the party itself was just a resource-gathering effort for her. My guess is the only reason she was there was that it was thrown by a major Hollywood kingmaker. And we all know she'd like to be taken seriously as an actor, if possible. It's a level of status she's been unable to crack despite her tertiary brand of celebrity. Similar to how she's working overtime to prove that she's a recording artist and DJ. How's this for irony? Kim Kardashian was at the same fashion show. I took a moment and contemplated if there was a special bond between celebrities of pornographic origin. Like a secret society or some shit like that. And to get in, would one have to have done an actual pornographic video or just have pornish tendencies? Anyways, back to Paris. This is the ride she is on at this moment in her timeline, and her resource hunt is very different than the average girl. But if you try to convince me that Paris loves DJing, acting in B-horror movies, or dating Eminem wannabes, I'll tell you that you're delusional. What she loves is this particular brand of attention and the drama, and the concerns it creates for the stuffy old money family she's rebelling against. Those are the resources she is hunting, and if you can help her to acquire those things, she'd probably fuck or hang with you too. I'd bet good money that she'll run out of bad girl gas in several years when she feels the wall coming. When that happens, she will fall gracefully back into the caste system she was always destined for. At that point her motivation will revert to finding a mate and resources more suitable to that environment. And while I'm throwing her under the bus, I will also give her credit. She's got a ton of time on her clock before the wall takes her. She gets major kudos for being way hotter in person than I would have imagined. I'd definitely fuck her on camera during a conjugal visit if such an opportunity were to arise. Just saying. Let's talk looks and style. While it's fairly low on the totem pole in my opinion, women will certainly take a hot guy with $80 over the not-so-hot guy with $100. Physical attractiveness will not, however, trump money and power on most days and in most social environments. While her deep-seated biological imperative is geared to procreate with a strong, healthy and attractive male who can physically protect her, the newer software she is running on top of that pushes her in the direction of the strong provider. After all, this isn't caveman days. The chances he'll have to save her from a wild animal or fight off a foreign band of savages are slim and none. But here's the catch. While that is the overall normal in Western culture, in my experience many of the younger women I encountered are very into the physical appearance resource. I've noticed recently that attractiveness doesn't necessarily fall under the traditional definitions anymore, things such as facial symmetry, a great body or great hair. These days attractiveness is more often manufactured through wardrobe and quirks like obsessive beards, tattoos and extreme piercings. I believe that women who chase men based on their perceived attractiveness think of them more as an accessory than an actual person. He's like a handbag or one of those little dogs they all seem to be infatuated with. He just needs to look the part for the world she inhabits. He needs to fit in. He has to be on par with the look and feel of her coven's ideal type. The resource he provides her through his aesthetics is comfort. It doesn't matter if her tribe is infiltrating tech nerds, athletes or underground rappers. The purpose of the males she chases is to assist her in her narcissism, keep up with her friends' standards and ensure her comfort level within that circle. Women like this will do almost anything to make sure they fit in. The opinions of their coven trump all. If her coven decides that dating tech nerds is so last year, she will dump your code writing ass and adjust her personality, wardrobe and environment to chase whatever the new flavor is. Perhaps I see this more with younger women because they do not see the impending wall. If they are even familiar with the concept, they believe that it's so far away that it's nothing to be concerned with. I believe that for the vast majority of women like this, the attractiveness resource is a resource they can only afford to chase in their 20s. My guess is that for most of these women, one day they'll be standing in front of the bathroom mirror after years of riding the "I'm so cool" cock carousel and begin to see the subtle cracks. When this time comes, she will suddenly find a man's lack of attractiveness to be a mere inconvenience. Her directive at this point will be to find a provider with more standard and traditional resources. The point I'm attempting to make is that there is certainly a period of time where this woman technically couldn't care less about your money, but you are still being used as a disposable resource via the guise of love. Now let's talk about the status quo resource. A married friend of mine recently approached me for some advice about his relationship. I usually get a little uncomfortable in such situations because of the aforementioned fear of sounding too Mgtow in the midst of a civilian. But I indulged him and listened. Without getting into the specifics of his personal problem, I'll just say he had discovered some new goals and interests and his wife wasn't too pleased about it. I thought hard about what I could and couldn't say regarding his purple pill awakenings. I find that married men can transform into agents at the drop of a hat, so I always proceed with caution. Here's what I believed was happening to him based on my personal experience. He was a beta male provider. He makes a reasonable living. Becoming wealthy was never part of the game plan. His wife couldn't care less if he had hobbies, pet projects or stayed out too late after work. What she cared about was that the standard she had become accustomed to remained the same and her level of control remained intact. His resources were the consistency of lifestyle he provided and the fact that his wife felt in control of things. His new interests not only presented a threat to her lifestyle, but also threatened the control she wielded over the household. With women like this, the immediate assumption is that if you make a ton of money, you will leave her totalitarian regime expeditiously and find a newer, younger model. And then come on, who are we kidding? She's absolutely right. I probed my mind for a story about myself that could help provide a eureka moment for him. I thought that personalizing it and making myself the butt of the joke would be way safer than breaking it down into Mgtow mathematics. So here's the story I told him. From about the age of 19 to 21, I was in this serious and committed relationship. A mutual female friend who thought I was a high-value target and the best available male within my tribe introduced me to this girl. When I met this girl, I was this very standard suburban character who was going to college locally and working a couple of silly part-time jobs. Thanks to my dad co-signing a car loan for me, I was able to get a really sweet ride. I was hitting all the buttons with the ladies. I was a fairly handsome young man, athletic, making decent money and had status and power within my social circle, and hers. And, of course, there was the car. My goals at this point in time were pretty rudimentary and based on what everyone told me I was supposed to want. A few years into this relationship, I decided that I wasn't quite comfortable with the projections of my future if I stayed on the course I was on. The initial adjustments I made were dropping out of college and focusing on making money. This caused zero ripples in the relationship. I'm pretty sure it actually improved it. I assumed that in her eyes I started looking very middle-class provider-ish. In the neighborhood I grew up in, this is what was expected of men from even the youngest of women. I secured a full-time well-paying job pushing planes out onto the runway at Kennedy. As I started working full-time, the expectations of rings and homes started to become way more than subtle hinting. Somewhere along the way, while I was working 60 hours a week, I realized something. My projected future still looked like shit. As the hamsters started spinning the wheels of change in my brain, it occurred to me that there was something I could do that had real meaning for me, and could also earn me a lot more money. I decided to share this information with my girlfriend. She confessed her concerns about the risks involved, but said she'd support me through this new transformation. I went through all the ups and downs that such transformations generate. I could feel her uneasiness, but she stuck with me. Here's the kicker. Right as the transformation process cleared all the hurdles and I was en route to success, she dumped me. I was completely baffled. This new direction was going to be life-changing, lucrative and even glamorous. Why in the hell would she leave me now? It irritated the deepest recesses of my brain like an unreachable splinter for years. The early imprinting that occurs between such young lovers is hard to shake. We harbored a deep connection to one another and remained in contact with each other over the years. One day, years into her second marriage, I finally just asked her, what happened back then? What she basically told me was that she only supported me because she thought I'd give it a valiant effort, fail and return to my original provider role. When I succeeded at something so lofty, I shattered her preconceived flight plan for how her life was supposed to play out. She subsequently sought someone out who looked more like the old me. It took her 2 tries, but she did indeed find the beta male provider who granted her the 2 children, 2-car, soccer mom suburban storyline she was after. I summed up my story by telling my friend the following: for many women, the resource you provide is consistency and safety. If she wanted an ambitious alpha male risk-taker, she would have sought that out right from the get-go. His best attribute in her mind is his predictability. The idea of him potentially being successful at something that empowers him is frightening as fuck to her. She prefers that everything stays exactly the same as it always has been. That is the world she understands and feels comfortable in. How you start with women is usually how you finish with them. Most women have no interest in growing with you. So there you have it, gentlemen. These are a few examples of times when women don't give a shit about your money. The resource they actually want is your soul. As always, remember, gentlemen, never take them seriously. Because more times than not, if they are talking, they are lying.